Good afternoon, folks. Chief Meteorologist Nick Lilia here, taking a look at your tropical update for July 2nd of 2019, brought to you by the good folks at Pine Belt Gutters. Again, things in the tropics getting a little more active, not only in the Atlantic, but also in the Pacific. Things in the Pacific a whole lot more active right now, but we'll get to that here in a second. Of course, the peak of hurricane season in the Atlantic side of things is all the way here at about September 10th. We're way back here, and we're roughly, boop, right there. So we're still, in terms of tropical activity, pretty low on the scale relative to how active things will get as we head through later in the year. This time of the year, again, in June we were looking here. Now we're in July, so we look not just close to home, but down into the Caribbean and then just off to the East Coast. As we move through July and toward August, we'll look a little further out and away from home. We've got a little cluster of storms just off of the east coast of South Texas right now, just off the coast of Houston. You can see they kind of bubbled up in the Bay of Campeche and lifted off to the north through the overnight hours last night and this morning. We don't anticipate any development out of this. This is just going to bring some rain to parts of Houston. I actually tend to think for parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama as we head through, not necessarily tonight, but through the day tomorrow. That little cluster of junk we were looking at yesterday off the east coast of Florida and just out to the east of the Bahamas it kind of fizzled as we went through the overnight hours. But the thing that probably caught your attention, let me go back here. The thing that may have caught your attention just off the screen, way down over here, is good old Barb. Hurricane Barbara, a Category 4 hurricane. It was a tropical storm at this time yesterday. Has a pretty decent eye on it right now. Look at that thing. Holy moly. Good news is this is heading away from the coast of Mexico, and as it moves off to the kind of, I guess you could call it west-northwest, and makes its way toward Hawaii, it's not anticipated to bother them, as it's going to slowly weaken over the next couple of days. But man, quite a satellite presentation out there in the open waters of the Pacific. Of course, with it being an El Nino year, the waters are running a little bit above average over here, so that extra heat in the water does do a good number to help out Barb there get organized. Back into the Atlantic we go. We've got some shear out here in the open Atlantic. We're still talking about Saharan dust and dry air out here as well. So there's really not much to write home about out here. We can look off the coast of Africa. Again, it's still a little too early to be looking out here for development, but you can see we do have waves coming off the coast of Africa. And these will probably fall apart as they get over the waters, because the water's just not quite warm enough this time of the year before kind of falling apart like this wave here. You can kind of see it just kind of fizzles into nothing. Yeah, just kind of fizzles into nothing. All right. What's headed this direction as we head through the next couple of days? Well, we got plenty of dry air, 700 millibar, showing the grayed out area in here, kind of draped back across the open Atlantic and off to the north. That's a lot of dry air in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. What we're looking for is some of the greens, the yellows, oranges, and reds, and maybe this little wave right here, for example. Away from those grayed out areas would be an indication of low-level rotation and moisture through the column of the atmosphere, through the mid-levels. And as this kind of meanders its way off to the west, notice it kind of falls apart because it's interacting with a lot of that dry air. A little bit closer to home, sure, not quite as dry, but there's also not really much happening. Even as we head through Tuesday and Wednesday of next week through about July 10th, I tend to think, by the way, as we get toward July 10th, this is going to be when we start to slowly transition into something that's a little more active closer to home. Now you can see we have a little area of low-level vorticity. This isn't associated with anything tropical across parts of the southeast. We've got some more just off to the north of South America. But man, look at all this dry air out here into the open Atlantic. Originally, the thought was by this point that a lot of this dry Saharan air was going to subside as the MJO came whipping back around the globe, again, just about July 10th, 11th, and 12th. And we were going to set ourselves up with a situation where somewhere in the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, even just off the east coast of the Bahamas, was going to be a little more favorable for some kind of tropical system development, or at least sustaining a tropical wave or cluster of thunderstorms long enough to where it may be something we have to be concerned about. But as you can see, most of the models are keeping the dry air pushing across parts of the Atlantic at that point. So as of now, we've got an activity happening, but in all, it's not going to change any of your holiday weekend plans. It's not going to bother you as we head through at least the next 5 to 7, maybe even 10 to 12 days at this point. So there's your tropical update brought to you by the good folks at Pine Belt Gutters. This is July 2nd of 2019.